Hey everyone, I'm Chelsea Evans. I'm a furniture artist from Redesign with Prima, and I'm going to show you all you need to know about Decoupage Décor tissue paper and rice paper. So first, let's get started and let me show you what it is and what's the difference between the two. I have Decoupage Décor tissue paper here, and then I have my rice paper right here. So let's open them up so I can show you. I have a couple of designs that I pulled to show you, but there's tons of beautiful, amazing designs from Redesign with Prima. They come in a package like this, and it is one sheet, and the sheets are different sizes. You can read right on the front of the packaging what size the sheet is. So this tissue paper is 19 by 30, and the rice paper is 11.5 by 16.25. So that kind of gives you an idea of the size. Okay. The tissue paper is a little bit thicker. This is a full sheet, so it is a little bit sheer and it's porous, okay? It's also really, really strong. So when using the Decoupage Décor tissue paper, I'm not gonna be able to tear it very easily. This is really, really nice when you're doing decoupage because you're not gonna have as many issues with it. You're not gonna have it bubbling, you're not gonna have rips and tears, definitely not rips and tears, and you're not gonna get those wrinkles. It lays out really nice and smooth. So this is a great, very user-friendly product to use, and I am gonna show you how to apply this to drawers later on. Now let's look at the rice paper. The rice paper is a little bit smaller, and it has a little bit different texture, more of a visual texture. So it's very thin, as you can see, and it has a rice paper texture, which is really, really beautiful. Okay, you can see this design is awesome with kind of like the antique tile up top and the florals on the bottom. I love the bright colors, how it pops. This is just a great print, and it's a fun piece to use. So we will be applying this onto a jewelry box today. I always love a good surprise. I like putting decoupage on the sides of drawers, on the inside of a drawer, or the insides of cabinet doors, because I think it's so fun when somebody opens that drawer or door and there's just like a pop, a cool design on the inside. Decoupage paper is definitely the way to go to add that pop, all right? So the first thing you wanna do is you want to have your surface prepped with a white background. So whether if you're painting on furniture, like this jewelry box here, you wanna have a white layer down, whether that's primer or paint. You want to paint white first before applying your decoupage. Now, if you have a light surface, like the side of the drawer, this is very, very light, almost white, that's gonna be okay. I don't have to paint that. But if it's darker, you're gonna wanna lay down white. And I'm gonna give you a quick example to show you exactly why, so visually you can see what I mean. Now, when you apply your decoupage gel, that's our adhesive, that's the medium that we're going to use. It's going to change the look a little bit, okay? Now, if I have a white background, do you see how all of the flowers pop and the design is vibrant and very light? You can easily see all of the florals, and it just really lets it shine and exactly as the way it is. Now, if I place it over a darker surface, like this black piece of paper, it dims it down a lot. You can't see the design as well as you can over here. And so you do want to lay down that white first to get that pop. However, if you like that, if you like the darker background and you want it more muted, then you can leave your surface dark, or you can paint a dark surface down before you lay your tissue paper down. One thing I should show you about the rice paper, it's very different than the tissue paper. They're made completely different, but you apply them the same way. Let me show you what I mean. So the tissue paper, as I showed you before, is really strong. You can pull it and it's porous, it's really durable. The rice paper is much more delicate, so you want to be a little bit more gentle with the rice paper, okay? You can crumple the rice paper and you can tear it. So when we apply the rice paper, I'm going to be very careful and show you my tips and tricks of the best way to get the rice paper on there without any wrinkles, tears, or any damage done. One of my favorite ways to use decoupage is on the sides of drawers. I love when you pull out the drawer and it has a funky design on the sides. I think that's really fun and it's unique too. So we are going to use the flower bed decoupage paper, and this is a tissue paper, so it's the one that's really, really strong and porous. And I've got my tissue paper, I have some scissors, and I have a little bit of sandpaper. I'm going to show you why. And I have my decoupage gel. There's two sheens of the decoupage gel. One is matte and one is shine. I'm going to use the matte today. So you're going to apply the decoupage gel underneath to make it adhere, and then you're going to apply it over top as well once it's dry. This way, you're getting it to stick to the surface, and then you're also sealing it at the same time. So you can use a water-based sealer to go over the top of it if you'd like to, or the decoupage gel can be your top coat as well for the decoupage. Okay, so I have my sheet, and I'm going to take it and just lay it on my drawer side here. And guess what? It doesn't have to be perfect because I can sand off the edges. So just get it pretty close. Now, by pretty close, what I do is I'll lay a straight edge along the bottom, and then I'll lay a straight edge in the joint where the drawer meets the front. And then I'm going to take my scissors, and I am just going to roughly cut a little bit over that edge. And then I will roughly cut the other edge. This makes it really forgiving, makes it really easy. If you're not doing a drawer side or you don't have something where you can sand the side off, let's say I was doing it in the inlay of a drawer and it was framed, then I would get it as close as I could before applying it. Once it's dry, I could use a small X-Acto knife or a craft knife, and I can just cut right along those edges and make it nice and crisp. All right, so don't ever stress about having it perfectly cut. Okay, that is perfect. That's exactly what we need. So I'm going to take it off, and we're going to use our decoupage gel. It is thick and white, but it will dry clear, so keep that in mind. If it makes your decoupage look a little bit milky, don't worry, it'll dry clear and that will go away. You're going to lay down a coat nice and liberally. All right. And you just want to make sure your entire surface is completely covered. So I usually brush both ways. I do a cross hatch, and I will brush vertically and horizontally just to make sure that it's completely covered. If it's not covered, then you might get a little air pocket or get a little piece of your decoupage that doesn't adhere. And I'll just wipe that right off. This is water soluble, so if I ever wipe any off with my finger, I can wash my hands and it will come right off. And you can use any furniture painting brush to apply this. You will want to make sure that you put it in water after using it so that it doesn't ruin your brush. For smaller projects, you can use one of the Art Basics brushes. Those are great to use as well. Okay, so now I've got it applied. And I do want to get it on there quickly, but it's not a race. Unless you're in direct sunlight, then you probably need to work quickly. Okay, so I'm going to take this. This is very forgiving too, okay? Like I said, it's very durable. So if I don't get it in the right place, I can move it around. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of line up that side. Now, this paper is porous, so it's coming through the paper onto my fingers. So be prepared for that. If that bothers you at all, you can wear gloves and do it that way. But it will wash off. It might make your hands just a little bit sticky, so either wear gloves or wash your hands after. See, and I have a tiny wrinkle right there, okay? With this paper, I can try and smooth it out, or guess what? I can lift it up, and then I can go back slowly over it, and I can smooth that wrinkle right out. It's so forgiving. It's so easy to use. That's why I really like working with this paper. Another fun use for the decoupage decor tissue paper is to use on lampshades. It's great for that because it's kind of sheer, and so you're still gonna get that light in from the light bulb, but it gives like a really cool, fun design. And this flower bud one, I really love it. It would be so cute on something like that. Then if you painted like the lamp part pink or one of the colors in here, that would be cool. Okay, so it's all applied. Now I'm going to let that completely dry, and then we're going to sand off the edges. Wait till it's totally dry to sand off your edges, because if you sand them off when it's wet, there's a good chance your paper might slide or move, or you're not gonna get a nice clean edge when you sand it off. Okay, so I already have the other side all dry. I applied it on there, and it probably needs to dry for, I don't know, maybe an hour. Sometimes it dries quicker or sometimes a little bit slower. It just depends on the climate that you're in. But I know it's totally dry. It might feel a tiny bit tacky, but when we seal it up, it won't. So I have these edges. I didn't cut it perfectly right, but I don't want to leave it like that. So I'm just going to take my sandpaper. I have 220 grit sandpaper, and I'm just going to go along the edges. And see, it will start to peel right away off of my drawer edge. And I have a perfect straight line. It's tight to the drawer, and it's probably even better than if I tried to cut it exact. And I'll just sand it all the way. There you go. Okay. All right, now I have nice trimmed edges, and this bottom edge, I made sure to line it up, but just in case it's overlapping a little bit, I'll go ahead and just kind of run the sandpaper across it as well. And we'll just clean up that edge. There we are. Perfect. I love that. Now when you open the drawer, it's really gonna pop and look super fun and inviting. Hopefully your clothes will look as cool in there. Whatever you have. Maybe you have like craft drawers. That would be really cute on there too. Now one thing I want to show you is when I was sanding this, the corner came up just a little bit. Okay? Don't worry about it. I'm going to take my decoupage gel, and I'm just going to lift that up and just dab the gel under it and then seal it, okay? All right, so now that we have it dried and sanded, we're going to take our decoupage gel, and we are just gonna go right over the top. This is going to seal it in. If you have any little fibers or edges, this will also help to seal that. Now the decoupage tissue paper will have a little bit of texture, so it won't be super smooth, such as like a stained or painted surface. So keep that in mind. But when this is completely dry, you can take that fine grit sandpaper and you can lightly go over it, and it will soften it just a little bit if you want to, but you definitely don't have to. All right, there we are. And I always end in my brush strokes going in one direction. That way, if any of those strokes show, it's nice and uniform, and it looks completed, polished. Okay, now once that's completely dry, I can pop it in the dresser, and I have some cool, funky decoupage drawers. I am going to show you how to use rice paper from Redesign with Prima on this jewelry box. Just right inside the door, so when you open it, you have a little surprise. I think that's the best way to use decoupage paper. So let's jump right into it. We are going to use the Twilight Fields rice paper from Redesign with Prima. And I love this design because it has beautiful, bright florals on it. And then it kind of has this textured, chippy tile look on the side. So it's kind of like the best of both worlds. And I love this because I can kind of choose what part of the design I want to use because I have a small space. Then make sure you save your scraps because you can use them on other projects, all right? So I've got my rice paper, I have my decoupage gel, my brush, and my scissors. And then I also have my sandpaper. Those are all your necessaries. Now we talked about leaving a white background before putting down your decoupage paper. And you can see I've just really quickly brushed one coat of white paint for the background. You can see it's not fully covered, it's not perfectly painted. That's totally okay. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to have a bright white base. And I even have some of the other paint from it on the edges. That's okay too, because I kind of like sometimes how it fades into the edge or into the color that you used on the piece, and then it helps with transition a little bit. So you can take the paint from your piece and just paint the edges a little bit, as long as the bulk of it has a white background or white base, okay? So let's decide what part we want to use. I really like the flowers. I think I mostly want the flowers because I want it to really pop and be bright. Oh, I love that. These are so fun. You could match this with so many different colors. You could pull in the greens, the yellows, this beautiful maroon tone. You could put it on a white piece and bring a lot of color to it. So this is really a versatile rice paper that you can use on a lot of different things, okay? But I think I like the bulk of the flowers on it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to lay it down, and the same way that I matched up the drawer, I'm going to match up two sides as well. So the bottom edge I'm going to match up so it's nice and flush with the bottom, and then this edge I'm going to match up so that's nice and straight, okay? Now, I don't wanna have to sand too much off because it's kind of, I don't really have an edge to sand off. So I'm gonna take my fingernail and I'm just going to kind of hit that edge with it so I have a fold line in my rice paper. Basically, I'm just making a crease so I know where to cut, okay? And then the same along the top. I'm gonna make sure it's nice and flat, and then I'm really gonna hit that with my nail. Now, if you don't have any fingernails, or if they're not long enough, you can do this with like a painter's stick, or you can even kind of take the edges of your scissors and kind of press down and go along that edge. And you're not cutting it, you're just getting, basically you're getting an outline so you know where to cut, okay? So now that I have that outline made, now I know where to cut. And this will make it so I have minimal touch-up or sanding, and it's going to fit pretty close to where I want it to. So I'm just gonna go right down that little score line that I created. And down this line. Okay. Right there. You can also take a marker or a pen and kind of trace out your shape or your edge as well. But I like doing this because then I don't leave any marks on my tissue paper in case I don't measure it exactly right, then I don't have to try and cover anything up, okay? And then I'm setting this aside because I can use this on, I could use it on both sides, so I would have plenty to do both sides. I could use it on the insides of drawers to line them, or I can use it on my scrapbooking. So I can use it on my scrapbook album, or I could use it on cards or paper, and I can create a really cool design. So always save your scraps. We are going to use the Decoupage gel in matte. There's matte or shine. So whatever you prefer. If you like your finished piece to have a little bit more shine, then go ahead and use the shine. And then we'll just go ahead and lay it right down. Oh, and you know what we probably should do is I always just kind of double check it. Just lay it down on there now that you've cut away the excess and see where you're at, okay? That is pretty close. There's a tiny bit of overlap right there, but I'm okay because I can sand that little edge off. So don't worry about that. As long as it's pretty close, you are golden. Okay, so let's lay down our decoupage gel. Now, rice paper is a little different when you are laying it down. It is more delicate, okay? So when you lay it down, you don't want to lay the whole thing down and have to move it. You want to lay down one edge and then slowly lay it down across the piece that you are laying it onto. I'm going to go in a cross-hatch motion. So we're gonna go vertical and horizontal just to make sure it's fully covered. We don't want any air bubbles or any spots that the decoupage paper is going to stay away from. We want it to really have a nice tight bond. And then this, make sure you're laying it the right way, the way you want it, because if you lay it upside down with tissue paper, you're safe. If you lay it upside down with rice paper, you might tear it. So be a little more careful and take your time when you're laying it down. And then I'm gonna kind of fold it up a little bit so I can see that edge. And I'm going to go ahead and just gently glue down my top edge, okay? Now I've got that in place. And there's a little tiny metal magnet for the door right here. I can go right over top of that magnet. This paper is thin enough, it's not gonna affect the magnet, so my door will still close. And I'm just going to kind of push around the magnet and make sure that the paper is surrounding it. And then I'm going to slowly lay down the paper. So I hold it up and lay it down with one hand, and the other hand I'm just kind of smoothing it. The rice paper isn't as porous as the tissue paper, so it's not going to come off onto my hand. The decoupage gel isn't the way the other does, but I don't want to rub my paper too much with my hand because it is more delicate and I could tear it or it could affect the design because now it's wet. So when paper gets wet, it tends to tear, right? It stretches more and it's not as durable as when it's dry. So be gentle with it. Treat it like it's wet and just kind of be gentle with it, okay? Now, if you have any little wrinkles, I don't worry about them. I just use them to my advantage. I use them to my benefit, okay? So if you get a little tiny wrinkle in there, just let it be. Don't pull the rice paper up and think, I gotta start over, it has a wrinkle. Just let it be, because guess what? When I go back in with a glaze, or if I go back in with my Décor wax or something, I can kind of just go over that little wrinkle that I made, and it's going to make it pop, and it's actually going to give the tissue paper and the rice paper a little bit more texture and a little more pop, and it just gives it some dimension. So don't ever be like, I gotta do it again. Just let it be. It's okay. Okay, now I'll let it dry. And once that's totally dry, I'll put another coat of the decoupage gel over the top to seal it. I could put it on now, but with the rice paper, I like to wait until it's dry so that I'm working with a dry paper. I'm not applying a wet product to a paper that's already kind of wet and would be more likely to tear. So you'll get better results doing that.